Are you looking for a new math curriculum? Well, CTC Math specializes in providing online video tutorials that take a multi-sensory approach to learning. Favorably reviewed in Kathy Duffy's 102 Top Picks and the Old Schoolhouse Crew Review. The lessons are short and concise to help your children break down concepts and appreciate math in a whole new way. The lessons are taught the traditional way, not to the test. Each one of the video tutorials is taught by an internationally acclaimed teacher, Pat Murray, who is renowned for teaching math concepts in a simple, easy-to-understand way and in only a few minutes at a time. Using a multi-sensory approach, having the combination of effective graphics and animation synchronized with the voice of a friendly teacher together with practical assessment, even students who struggled with math are getting fantastic results. And the ones that were doing okay before now are doing brilliantly. Visit CTC Math today and start your free trial. That's ctcmath.com.
This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
Are you aware that the minds and hearts of our children are being undermined? In the past, this happened quietly without our notice. However, now it's out in the open. In this podcast, we will discuss a way to counter the enemy of the family. Hey friends, and welcome. My name is Felice Gerwitz, and today we are going to be talking about a topic that I'm going to be doing a series on. Today's episode is Minds and Hearts of Our Children. It's episode 531. And I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, ctcmath.com. Check out their amazing software for K through 12 math that works. Well, friends, this was not the topic or theme I wanted to discuss today. But unfortunately, it became a topic of grave importance when I stumbled across a post by what I would call an insidious, evil person who is out there to undermine parents everywhere. I was shocked to learn that many are out in the open, unapologetic, and right under the nose of most parents. More on this in a bit. In the past, we worried about subliminal messages on records and music, whether or not a painting had things drawn in that were not age appropriate, or if a movie had a character that was not to our liking or against our religious or moral belief. One time as an adult watching a movie, I gasped in shock, and when my husband asked why, I said, "That one character had her upper half exposed for a brief second." We could not believe it. I had to rewind it and look at it, and my husband goes, "I'm just going to turn away and you let me know what you see." And that's exactly what I saw. This character was topless. We warned our daughter about this family-friendly, quote-unquote, princess film at the time, and she already had been aware of it because she, thank goodness, looked up the movie as well as some other ones, and I've got some sites that I want to recommend. But at one point, it was just a little here and a little there, and while it was present in children's television and movies, most parents were warned, like my daughter, and they could make informed decisions. In fact, if you're like me, you would have researched, and like her, and preview the films before you even allow your children to watch them. I remember my husband and I sitting through some really boring movies at one point, and we did this because we didn't know what we would see. Even some of the sites I think are lacking. For example, one of them, Common Sense Media, has, I think, gotten a little bit less intense, maybe would be the word I'm using. I looked up a movie and it turned out that it was R-rated. And when I read the reviews on this family-friendly site, it gave it 3 stars instead of the -1 I thought it deserved. The film had nudity, smoking pot, and profanity in it. Oh, is that all? Obviously, I'm being sarcastic here. My go-to sites are in the show notes, and that is Plugged In or Christian Answers, and both have review sections. I just looked up Harold and the Purple Crayon. I remember those books from when I was little, and I also bought them for my firstborn. I was so excited to read the book to him, which basically is a bunch of drawings. And I wanted to take my grandchildren to this one, but we'll sit it out, and you can read about the reviews on the site. Yet, while all of this is valid and there is a concern, what if I told you there's a known child predator out there lauded by a specific party, even having a platform in an upcoming convention that is grooming children to disobey their parents? Yes, you heard that right. Disobey their parents. I heard a brief montage with an overall theme of disobeying and, not only that, disrespecting your parents. I wasn't even looking for this, friends. I was reading the news, which truthfully I try to avoid, and this came up on my X feed, which is Twitter. I didn't want to watch it, and normally I would just go right by it and think, okay, I'm not going to look at this, and yet I felt like, gosh, you need to watch this. And the reason I wanted to watch it is I've been thinking about doing a podcast specifically for children where I would be talking directly to them. And as homeschoolers and a parent, more than likely, I would say 99% of you would probably be sitting somewhere nearby as your kids are listening to a podcast with an adult talking to them, or I would think you would be. And so I've been praying about whether to do this. I have done some of them if you want to look for those. They're called Just for Kids. And I've been thinking about it more and more. So I thought, well, let me see what somebody else is doing that is talking to the children. And so the overall advice was how to disrespect and disobey your parents. And it was geared for kids. And this gentleman who was dressed as a woman, but his name was a male name, basically said the following. Number 1, if you're asked to do something, play innocent. Number 2, feel no guilt. And number 3, limit contact. All I could say is it was sickening, disturbing, and heartbreaking. Sure, there are kids out there who may be confused for a season, and this person is the reason why. He's grooming children to be disobedient to the people who love them, who care for them, and who feed them, and those who truly have a stake in their well-being. As this man teaches children how to disobey their parents, he's conversely telling them to obey him, as if this person, whose sanity is perhaps in question, sorry if I'm being judgmental here, but I am so upset, as if this person has all the answers. He has no moral answers, that's for darn sure. And if you've never forwarded a podcast, and I'm not doing this for ratings, I'm doing this for the protection, for the hearts, the minds, and the souls of our children. Because we teach our children to ask questions if they don't understand what they're asking. And definitely not in a way to stonewall us or make us angry. In this situation, he's asking children to be combative purposely and disobedient and hurtful. The first part was, well, play innocent. And if a parent is asking you something and you don't want to do it, play innocent and say things like, well, what do you mean? Or I don't know what you're saying. Or can you explain that? And encourage them to explain what they're talking about. Well, of course we want our children to say, I'm sorry, I don't understand, Mom, or can you explain that? But not as a way to be combative. Secondly, feel no guilt. So he's teaching that if you feel bad for being a disobedient child, you should ignore this feeling. Friends, God gives us this built-in moral compass that we are, as parents, are to nurture in our children. The way we do this is to praise good behavior or encourage our children to make wise choices. We use teachable moments and give children the ability to explore the world around them that is in wholesome ways. Yet to purposely tell a child not to be morally bound to listen to their parents is offensive and hurtful, and it's downright evil. And lastly, and this is the worst, limit contact. If your child has pulled away from you, this may be the reason why. There are people out there who tell our children that limiting contact with their parents is actually a good thing. And it's the best way to keep from getting swayed from a bad way of thinking to a good way of thinking. I don't know who this person thinks they are. Obviously, this person doesn't have children. This makes perfect sense in a world of moral decay. If you avoid contact with what is good and holy, you are not going to become good and holy. But if you surround yourself with what is evil, then what other outcome can you expect? This character used terms like bully and narcissistic persons to describe parents. He basically said, we as parents would only talk about ourselves in response to our children's needs. And he said, here are the typical responses that your parents will have. Well, how can you do this to me? Or why aren't you listening to me? Or how can you be so hurtful to me? Okay, friends, I'm guilty of all three of those things. And sometimes in the heat of anger, we as parents say things that maybe we don't mean, but it's kind of hard to be sensitive to a child who's being outright disobedient to us. We can say things like, I respect your feelings and I understand that you're hurt, but you really need a time of time out. But most of us in the middle of being upset are going to have difficulty with that. It's a good thing to use your words well. It's a good thing to be able to say things in a non-hurtful manner. But this gentleman implied, and I keep saying the word gentleman, this person implied that we were narcissistic and bullies, and that anytime anyone tells you something you don't want to hear, they're narcissists and they're bullies. So what can we do to fight for the minds and the hearts of our children? You, dear parent, are so overwhelmed with homeschooling, parenting, finding enough money for groceries and other bills, and just trying not to stress. Before I recorded this podcast, I ordered pizza for my husband to pick up. One large pizza was $27, and we didn't get a ton of things on it. What has happened in our world? How can a family afford to get pizza? They can't. We don't have time, let alone extra time to think. And I get it, and I've been there. But this is so important. This, in fact, has been eye-opening and a shock to me. And maybe I live in a bubble. I don't know. But I haven't seen this type of thing. I'm not on TikTok, and that's where this original recording was made, and then it was shared on X. But the groomers are out there and they're ready. During COVID, I remember that there was this big Zoom, pretty much it was terrible. It was all of these men who were homosexuals and predators who were singing this song, and it was supposed to be this parody, and it was supposed to be a joke about, we are coming for your children. And, something about, yes, it's true. And when people went to find it, they couldn't, because there was such an uproar over it that they took it down. Well, basically, this gentleman, and again, I'm using the word gentleman, and obviously you can tell those of us that have manners tried to be polite. But this person who goes by a male name dressed as a woman is out there saying that our children do not need to listen to us. And thankfully, My children are grown, but I have grandchildren that I'm concerned about. And I'm thankful that my daughter doesn't let them on the internet, nor do the younger ones have cell phones, just the 17 and the 18-year-old that work. But we have to ask ourselves and ask our children, who are you? And have them define who they are. Are you a child of God? Are you a member of this family? Are you a brother, a sister, a son, or a daughter? We have to have them define themselves so they know who they are. And then we need to define ourselves to our children. I am your mom or dad. I'm your grandparent. I love you, and I want what's best for you. If you ever need to talk to me, I am here for you. We are a family. We love God. We go to church, and fill in the blanks with whatever defines you and your family. Make sure that your kids know who they are and that you are there for them, because a lot of these children that are listening to this person, and he even has, and this pains me to say it, a Patreon where you can donate money so that he can do one-to-one with the child. Again, heartbreaking. Here are some points that I want to make. The first is the definition, and these are all in the show notes. The second is to explain to your children that it's family first. You know, as a Christian, I would always say it's God first and then family. And so our kids would know a distinction. But for simplicity here, I want to just say, explain your family dynamics to them. We are a team. We spend time together because we're a family. Explain that your family comes first and the needs and wants of each person in the family are equally important. Sure, someone may be sick from time to time and need extra attention, but parents should be sure that their children are not falling through the cracks. I heard a term recently that was called glass children, and I'll podcast about this in a future episode. And these are kids who feel like no one sees them and looks through them because others in the family are in such dire need. And this is talking about families perhaps where there's chronic illness within another family member or even the parent. And maybe this is your family. But we have to know that no matter what, we are there for each other. We care for each other. We protect each other no matter what. Have I driven medicine up to Bradenton, 2 hours away, to my adult daughter that needed it? Yes. Have we done things for each other in the family when there was a need? Of course. One time, my daughter, who lives in town, she and her husband had the stomach flu, and they had little children. And we went over there armed in gloves and hand sanitizers and wipes and all kinds of things. And we were there for her and her husband until they, could get through the day. And what turned out was within a couple of days, we got it too. Would I have said, well, no, I'm not going to go because I might get sick? Of course not. We as parents are selfless. And it's not something like we tell our kids, see, we do all this stuff for you and you do nothing for us. That's not why I'm telling you this. But we know what we've done for our children, and we're not going to get appreciated this side of heaven. And I've already realized that. Our kids are not going to appreciate us, but you've got these people out there telling them that we're going to make it all about us. So we have to be really careful and watch what we say. And then there's something I call the fundamental option. This is the line in the sand. What is most important in your family, and what is the most important decisions you make? Make sure your kids are aware of this. It's a set of rules, respect for you and each other, faith, church on Sunday no matter what, family meals, no phones at the table, or whatever that is or that rule. And make sure to make it clear. The biggest thing in having children that actually listen is following through. But we have to follow through in a way that makes sense and is loving and practical, meaning something we could actually implement. And I have lots of podcasts out there where I discuss this in length. But we need to make that clear to our kids, that there are some things that we are just going to do as a family, and this is important to us. And then good morals. Do we teach our kids good character traits and morals? Do we do this by example? The best way is to teach by example, but also through role playing and working through character activities. And I've put a link to 2 12-pack character activity packs I have. If you forget to pay for an item, do you go back to the store? Yes, I know. You've got to bring all the kids back in. Ask me. I've done it before. It's horrible. And then you have the person at the register looking at you like, are you nuts? You just got a free jar of jelly. You know, it was $3 and you're coming all the way back to the store to bring it back? Yeah, but my kids saw that. Or when I backed up into a car that was parked and I had to get out and leave them my name and phone number so that I could exchange insurance information. That was another fun time, but my kids got to witness that. And then my sister-in-law shared something with me that I loved. She said she was taking her grandson to school one morning, and she was visiting her daughter, and she said there was a huge line, waiting to turn right at the light where the school was. And there was a car that was trying to get in front of her. And there were about, 4 cars ahead of her. And she knew she wasn't going to make the light because she was watching it. And so she let this car in front of her instead of, driving super fast so that the car couldn't get there. And her grandson goes, well, what did you do? You should have just moved up. And she said, I could have. She goes, but kindness is an important thing that I try to practice. Kindness to others, whether I know them or not. And she said he just looked at her and didn't say anything. These are teaching moments, things that we can do without being hurtful to each other. The next thing is to get unplugged, and you've heard me talk about this before if you're a long-time listener. Be sure to have control over your child's devices, but realize this isn't enough. Even the library app isn't safe. There's all kinds of pornography in the library. If you can pay extra for protections on your internet service, do it. Lots of cell phone plans have that. But the best protection is teaching your children what is right and wrong. And putting protections and passwords on your kids' phones or devices, whether it's an iPad or a tablet or computer or whatever that is, that only you can access, is important. If we can give our kids a window of time not to be exposed to the filth while they're under our care, the odds are that they're going to grow up to be well-adjusted adults is going to be way better. In our family, prayer and God were a big part of our homeschool journey. We had days when we fasted from television or sweets as a family. We practiced the 40 days leading up to Easter, called Lent, as a family. In fact, my college-age kids even joined us in this while they were away at school. And then they would tell me, oh, my friends are fasting for the 40 days as well. And I said, are they Catholic? And they said, no. Some were Christian and some were non-denomination and some were not even Christians. But they decided to do it together because they liked the idea. Even sacrifice can be something that kids want to do if they see that there's a higher purpose. We have a family cell phone loop where we post prayers for each other or we celebrate holy days and remembrances. And this could only happen because we began a long time ago as homeschoolers. And even if you haven't, consider doing things that are family focused. Look at your homeschool curriculum and be sure to add a part of all of these things that you can celebrate throughout the year. Celebrate things with just your family. Friends are wonderful. I love my friends. But family time is often limited and so precious. Do things with only your family. I have so much more to say on the topic, especially on how we can use our words to encourage our children. and encourage them to seek their own answers that have a good moral foundation. One way to do this is to use short teaching lessons as we live our lives. Next week's podcast is going to focus on the 4 questions to ask your children that deal with their future, dignity, relationships, and accountability. And this, again, is something that I feel passionate about, especially as I feel like I have been in this dark tunnel and my eyes have just been opened by this glaring spotlight of this horrendous evil that is in the world. I'm not naive enough to know that it didn't exist, but coming face to face with it was a shock. I will pray for you as you navigate a society that preys upon the hearts and minds of our children, and I just pray that you find something useful today and that you share it with a friend. Take care, God bless, and I will talk to you soon. Again, the show notes for this episode are on vintagehomeschoolmoms.com. Look for Minds and Hearts of Our Children, episode 531.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and thevintagehomeschoolmoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.